hopefully I have all my faculties and you're just waking up and you've just had your coffee. So maybe we'll be on a level playing field this time because
Well, how
I've
is
had all
coffee?
day.
How is coffee in Portugal?
Well, I will say that as in most of Europe, they adore espresso. And me, I usually drink, I guess, a pot of brewed coffee every morning. So it's been a withdrawal. There's been withdrawal symptoms. It
Mm.
has all the caffeine, but none of the volume. And to me, I like to sit down with a huge cup of Joe and ponder and see what's going on in the world. But we have one of these bad little espresso makers that works half the time and half the time it doesn't. So I still haven't figured it out. It's complicated.
Yeah,
A lot of
yeah.
pods. They have lots of pods here. It brings me back to my time in Australia when I just kept asking, like, can't you just guys pour water over coffee grounds and make coffee? Like no, you have to have this machine, you have to have pods, you have to have a
Mm.
Italian. Anyway, they made excuses, but the guy wrote afterwards and said, after you left, they opened up a pour over coffee place.
Mm.
So
Yeah. Well,
even more money, but
the danger with an espresso machine is that you like it so much, and if you begin to drink it as if it was regular coffee.
uh, I have definitely done that. Yes, I'm still getting my sea legs, but yes, Europe is beautiful, and we've been just having a great time and thinking a lot about AI.
Hmm.
So there we go, and I hope maybe for anyone watching, and sorry if it's too noisy here, but it's very noisy. It's Europe. Um, you sent an article about some research which I found interesting for two reasons, but maybe you could give us a little bit of an insight into why this captured your imagination.
Yeah, so I'm kind of thinking always, what's the next big thing? And in AI, the next big thing was in the past, it was maybe next 5 or 10 years or something like that, and it was always unexpected. And now I think with the pace of progress, the next big thing can be next year, and you can kind of see it on the horizon a little bit easier because everything that is going on is spectacular, and the next big thing you can kind of extrapolate, and it's also gonna be a big thing, and that big thing is going to be a an infusion of AI, generative AI, into operating systems, or kind of like a re-evaluation of what generative AI is, and maybe kind of using it as a operating system, kind of reimagining the concept, right? Because it's not so much that now we need to plug in stuff, and it's the next big thing, right? Like, hey, you want to plug in a microphone into your PC, or you want to connect something to your phone, right? So it's kind of taken care of, right? So the next big thing for an operating system's got to be an AI addition, and maybe that addition will take over actually the concept, because everything else is just the driver, everything else is just connectivity, right? It's kind of hard to kind of think about operating systems as always being the same thing they are today.
Absolutely, and since we neither of us, or at least I've always been a Macintosh person, you've always been a PC person, and Microsoft made their first leap into this concept of having an assistant, which is interesting, right? So
Yeah.
they keep trying. I'm not sure where that's going, but as anyone knows from Apple, who's an Apple person, they always wait, and they have yet to release any of their proposed operating system updates, right? And so we shall see. Now they are in beta, but as with everything in the world of Apple, they tend to wait until things actually show value because people are very critical of Apple, right? Whereas Microsoft, well, who knows what's going on with Microsoft, right? They're always a little mysterious. And in fact, that they got in so early to this game is almost not their MO either, because they're industrial, right? They want to make sure that nobody has to update their software for their entire lives. It seems it may be changing, but what interested me about this concept of a generative AI layer, and we talked last time, and I wrote based on your thoughts about meta layers, right? So an operating system has two layers here, and you can pick either one, because as a user interface person, I find once phones were invented, that convention of a phone took off, right? It's a simple thing, it seems to work, but all those are based on a million conventions that have taken years and years and years to to be workable, right? A launcher and system oriented calls that work, right? So all that mechanisms behind the scenes is hidden in a phone. You know, we tend to think of them as simple devices that a kid could use, right? But really, they are just a evolution, I think, of a desktop operating system, which still has the desktop files, folder, you know, all the terrible conventions that we've had forever are all there. So far, so good. Do you agree that people's relationship with OSs is very I don't think anyone falls in love with an OS unless maybe you're a Mac person. But even then, I think people like their phones better than their computers.
Well, and then there is the Linux community also, right? That is like a
100%.
yeah, and I think they are those people are actually probably, you know, I don't know if they are
They're
in
more
love with
Mac.
the
I think
OS,
they're Mac-like. Yeah.
but they are extremely efficient. They are very happy with the command line interface. They
Yep.
are very, they are, you know, they are used to an operating system that, you know, can be set up 10 years ago and never crashed once, right? uh,
100%. Yes. That's well, and that is the undercurrent of Linux or a
yeah.
Unix
Mhm.
that runs Mac, right? So you
Mhm.
can forego all that and just be in
Mhm.
Unix land where everything is familiar. So
Yeah.
that's not true of Windows, to my knowledge. I don't know
Yeah.
if they're the same.
Yeah, and then there is you know, gaming console operating systems, like a totally different look and feel, totally different interactivity, and still kind of being there, kind of fulfilling a niche, you know, demand.
That's an actual really interesting one, come to think of it, because its conventions are it's almost phone-like, right? Because you would have launchers and you would have
Mm,
some sort of memory layer. So here's my two pills. You can take either one, because one is meta, which is how do you use the computer if you have an intermediary, a meta intermediary, which I could describe as saying, I want to do X. And we call this in my world task orientation, right? Most people have no interest in a drill, they want a hole. That's the idea, right? Everyone just wants the hole. They couldn't care less
mm,
about drills or drill bits. They just want a
yeah.
hole. And so the computer has always frustrated many, because to say, hey, I need to write something, most people in business would open up Microsoft Word, which I say is the probably worst thing you could ever do if you wanted to write. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
it's overkill. It's too much. It's its
Mm,
own world, you know. And if you said I want to put text in a table, it would open Excel. Again, the worst place you could ever put text, in my opinion, is Excel, because it's for adding things. It's not anyway. So two
yeah.
terrible program, but it's an environment. Or I want to tell a story, open up PowerPoint. Anyway, I'm going to pick on Microsoft a lot. Okay, but
Mm,
if you went to the computer at a meta layer and said, I want to do X, that's my left hand. That's meta, right?
mm,
And where generative AI, I think, definitely has lots of opportunity, you know, to help with task orientation. But you know me, I have to go deep. So then there's the
mm,
other thing, which is computers are weird, and they have this whole world of how they allocate memory, how they understand how to prioritize processes that most people don't know about, but performance. So that's your other hand. So tell me, do either of the from the research you shared, you have both in a way, right? One is to be able to deal with low level memory allocation, which could involve, for example, cheaper and more powerful machines that can actually prioritize their processing and memory usage based on generative AI rather than ML or whatever they use now, right? Which are
Mm.
pretty clumsy, probably, because you still have to trust. You have to trust, your developers. And in games, you have the same issue. Although games tend to be mono, right? They're like,
Mm.
I want all the processor and all the memory, So give me whatever you've got, and you don't have to deal with multitasking. So, do either of those? Do you have a thought of where we should start? Because I'm wondering if you like the memory layer. Do you think that's interesting?
Well, so so in the in the sci-fi novels, for example, if you look at novels by Jack McDewitt,
Hmm.
he is a Nebula winner for his novel the Seeker. It's a kind of like a space opera, and I like to read him because it's kind of like a uh, uh, kind of archaeological sci-fi. They are always
Oh, okay.
kind of like Indiana Jones kind of a thing, although they are using spaceships, they are not using horses, right? But in his world, whenever they talk to a computer, they are talking to an avatar. Right. So if you are sending an email to somebody
Yes.
or whatever, you are always kind of like, hey, here's the avatar, and maybe it's going to be your face, and it's maybe somebody who is deceased, right? Or maybe it's going to be, like a secretary who is going to be set up as an avatar or whatever, right? And also on the kind of like internal side, whenever they talk to a spaceship main computer, there's always going to be this avatar that will have personality and whatever, right? So
Oh, and don't
so
forget Star Trek, Jack. Come on, you got to go back because remember, computer do this, right? And the computer can parse and use whatever strange methods it might to fire the photon torpedoes or whatever it does.
yeah,
No, photon
yeah.
torpedoes, you have to have a button for those. But
Yeah, they kind of like they neglected the central computer, but they personified AI with the robots, right? With the androids, right? So,
right.
that's kind of a similar thing that I'm trying to get at, right? Like, okay, so we have memory management, and I think this is a well understood kind of concept, right? We have the GPUs, and we have things that really will have a lot of horsepower to run very significant AI on board. And if it is not enough, then obviously we can reach somewhere else to a dedicated maybe data center to kind of run bigger AI, right? So
Well,
that's kind of
pause for a second because that is a good statement. Because I wonder, because we've been there so long, we have made huge progress with memory, right? We have gigabytes and gigabytes of memory and storage. So we take for granted that we can process our way out of more and more complicated things. But as far as I know, running Llama, that's what people, they want to have on board this huge token. Like it isn't a resource friendly thing to do. Does that make sense, right? It is
yeah.
expensive to run these things. And are they trying to attack? We'll just get the memory out of the way, but are they trying to attack that problem? Because that problem is for many businesses very like how much to invest. Do you have to keep
Yeah.
re-upping and re-upping your processing to take advantage? That's been the past year, 2 years. It's people just buying as many NVIDIA cards as they can, to do what they think might be needed later, right? Resources. But if
Yeah.
you had AI as a arbiter, could you go to cheaper layers, right? Could you go to old cell phones and be running sophisticated ML, or I'm sorry, generative AI systems on those?
Mm. Exactly. Yeah. So if you are a game player, and maybe you saw the first version of the Doom game, that was absolutely top level requirement required, to play it. Now you can play it on pretty much anything. You can play it on your phone or whatever. So since the beginning of the generative AI, we probably dropped by an order of magnitude at least the level of hardware requirements to run a very decent model. So, maybe you needed an H100 a few years ago to run a model. Now the same model would probably run on your kind of like a maybe gaming laptop or something like that. And so we definitely are marching towards large language models to be very ubiquitous. Maybe not those top of the line, where that's still going to require huge resources, but those that you can talk to, that you may need to use instead of Word or instead of Excel, that they're just kind of going to solve your problem. Hey, add these things up, or write me a letter or something. I think this is going to be firmly within the desktop level capabilities.
And investment wise, I think that is probably more exciting than the human, the humans come later, right? The ability to get more and more people to use their tasks to have a computer, in a sense, be able to create a meta layer, right? A meta layer where Word might not be needed. Instead, I just want to tell Jack that I'm 15 minutes late, and it figures out whatever method to to contact you, and maybe several methods, and it does that for
Exactly.
me, and I say good, and rather than me opening up a program that is dedicated to you to do
Mm.
these things.
So 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 right now we just made email disappear, right? We just made various methods of traditional communications disappear, because really we are not interested in remembering somebody's email address. We just want to communicate with that person, and maybe that person has that preferred method of communication. So the AI will know that. Right. So and the same applies to other things. Like right now, I'm focusing basically on replacing Excel. So right now, my project that I'm working on is, hey, here's this file that I got. I just want to upload that file, and I want the AI to tell me what's important in that file that I uploaded. And maybe it's an Excel table, or maybe it's a CSV, or maybe I completely don't care and don't want to know what's in there. Right? But
Yeah.
I have a question. What's important in that file? And if it's a table, then the AI should do the statistics. It should do the maybe projections. Maybe it should find the outliers, right? But to me, I mean, maybe I'm just not interested in statistics, right? Or maybe I'm not interested in machine learning that was super hard 2 years ago. Doing the predictive analysis and the descriptive interpretation of machine learning models. Maybe I don't want to do that. Maybe I just want to ask the AI, hey, tell me what's really in there, and give me a nice report. So right now I can do that without even opening Excel, because the AI will give me a summary, will give me a graph, will give me an ability to have a conversation if I would like to know more about, oh, that bullet point seems to be interesting. Okay, give me more on that, right?
Yeah.
So you see, I mean, we are replacing all these things that you are saying that are not great, that were the foundation of the PC revolution, right? So those apps, really, I mean, maybe they should be no apps. Maybe it should be just one engine that can do all these things that we are talking about.
Well, there's a lot to be. Well, the appealing thing is as we're both educators and we've both been here a while, I still find, now to this day, that younger people just don't know or care how this stuff works, right? They might, in fact, get hooked on content types, which is interesting because we both probably follow the news, and we know of this thing called Twitter that turned into something else, which then was co-opted by another company that we know well with I guess, analog or whatever you want to call it, copy, right, of this service, because this kind of messaging is interesting. But my wife and I, and maybe you as well, I was posting to Instagram. I don't want to talk about Meta too much. I like to talk Meta, but not the company. But all of their products now, to me, seem to do the very same thing. And it's strange that they are all separate products. Does that make any sense? Like, if
Yeah.
I want to share a picture with my friends, you see what I mean? Like, I don't need a thing called Instagram. It just so happens the thing called Instagram has a convention. I could share it in threads. And to me, it looks and acts exactly the same, sort of, right? Or Facebook, and what's really weird now is it'll post it to all three. So no matter where I post, it just changes it. And to me, there's something in our next conversation. There's something really, really weird about that. And maybe it's proving your point that these data models, right, are no longer that necessary. And of course, the worst data model of all time is email, right? Because it is the stupidest one of all, right? And everyone has tried to reinvent email, but it's still the same thing. I'm sending pictures to my mom. That's all I really want to do. I just want her to get them and enjoy them. But I have to be a computer whiz. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
To know how to communicate to you. And even then, being 15 minutes late, somehow I want the computer to tell you that I'm 15 minutes late. Now that sounds like a job that a computer can do, but it can't, right? It is not proactive in any way, shape, or form for good reason, because we could also talk about security and stuff, but I don't want to go there right now. I mean, I like the concept, but I think that our data models might be um, in need of refreshing. Does that make sense? Like, what
Well,
are what are our packages now? Like you just said, you have a CSV. That's like an arbitrary, right? Anything could be in there, I
yeah,
guess. You know what I
yeah.
mean? You could have a JPEG next to a Word, next to some code. Who knows what could be? Well, that for the sake of argument, what do you think of that? Does that make any sense to you?
Yeah, so what if, right, we just kind of think about the next step, how do we access all that stuff? What if that access point is going to be something that looks like basically OpenAI's, GPT interface, right? Because at the end of the
Yeah,
day,
the black
right?
box, right? It can
Yeah,
do anything.
At,
Yeah.
yeah, at the end of the day, I just have a question. I would like to take a look at a nice picture of a sports car, right? And I may not
Sure.
care whether that picture comes from Instagram or it comes from whatever other resource it is. So now those social media platforms, they just become storage. And my operating system that I'm running, maybe Windows or Mac, I really don't care whether there is a search bar there, whether there is something that I can open from the menu or from an icon on the desktop. I don't really care about all this. I just have a question that I'm asking, maybe using the keyword, or maybe having a conversation, which to your point is the voices, the AI voices are so well done now, right? I mean, they are really kind of immersing. So maybe I just have a question that I'm gonna ask what? I'm not gonna ask maybe Windows, right? I'm not gonna ask Mac. I just wanna have the AI to give me the result that I'm looking for. So you see, so we removed 90% of the front end of an operating system, basically, with the AI used that way. And I think this is kind of how things will be progressing, right? If maybe the thing that is going to be a little bit slightly kind of different, harder to do would be, the applications that require a lot of GPU power, right? Like maybe if I wanted to play a game, right? Maybe I would have to have something that really enables maximum power of the hardware to be delivered because I'm playing a very specific app. But for 90% of Office applications, I just probably just want to talk to the AI, and I will be able to do that on a medium range system.
You unpacked a whole thing about gaming too that I just learned about how generative landscapes are built, and a lot of them are actually created based on a math term that you probably know, but it's basically that there's only so many ways things go together, right? And so therefore it doesn't have to map every single speck of dust, but yet it looks as though, because of its way of what do they call it, roguelike or whatever, but it can regenerate your gaming environments because of just our ability to tune out different patterns. As long as they look realistic enough, they're fine, right? And that level of detail could be staggering to both storage and effort needed, but they aren't anymore because they have this data model that works. And that's the thing, the data model of Instagram may be translated over to Facebook, but I think they're brittle. I actually think they're kind of brittle in there because they come from the past. And that's
they
why
may
our operating
always
system is
be.
so brittle.
They may
I
always
think
be, right?
so, yeah.
But now we have a way to kind of make sense out of this, right? So maybe we don't have to really clean up the data set because the AI will find for us, the representation that kind of works, and it will kind of ingest it into a neural network architecture and correct it there in real time, rather than us trying to do something that we never were able to do, which is to clean up explicitly the databases if they are not appropriately set up. So I think this is now becoming a moot point, right? I mean, we don't need to clean the data set because it's gonna be cleaned up in the neural architecture.
Incredibly profound, though, if you ask me, right? Because there's a lot of money in there, Jack. I'm just saying, there not only is there a lot of information in there, I'm certainly waiting, and hopefully shortly we'll see what Apple's doing, but I have 20 years of files, you know what I mean, that I've kept around. I barely know what's in them, but I know there's always something that I want, you know what I mean? There's something that I want to extract from that, so I don't have to rethink or redo the work that I did before. And that might be a good place for us to wait for our next convo, because that world is we've never lived in that world, right? We've always had to be very fastidious about our organization, about the ideas that come across, and most, you and I both know, most work, 50% of it is just getting things cleaned up enough in order to have an opinion and or have a conversation.
And maybe to finish this conversation is that, right, so we are kind of setting up the stage here for something big. But I was listening to Bloomberg, and Jamie Dimon from JP Morgan was bragging that last year or this year, they hired 1,000 AI workers. I don't know what this exactly means, but this is
None of us
very
ever do. Maybe the data analysts change their LinkedIn profile.
But I think he might have meant that they actually installed 1,000 AI systems. Rather than I think that may have been the real meaning of what they were talking about. So, but one way or another, right? This is going to be huge.
Agreed, and can't wait for our next conversation. So until then, from beyond, cheers, and good always to talk to you. Appreciate you.
Yeah, great to talk to you, Mike. Thank you.